The Sydney Kings and the New Zealand Breakers are locked in a battle in the championship series right now, and it's a chance for us just to pause and take a look back at another big moment in the Sydney Kings history, and that is to go back to the 03-04 title and some of the similarities between this year's Sydney Kings and the 03-04 Sydney Kings are absolutely remarkable. We're going to explore that with a man who dominated that season and the grand final series. He was the league MVP. He was the grand final MVP. What about these for numbers? Averaged 15.5 points a game, 14.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks across the series. I think it's fair to say that 03-04 belonged to Matty Nielsen. Matty, thanks for joining us. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Before we jog your memory a little bit on what happened that year, this Sydney Kings outfit that are in action at the moment, I know you're obviously very busy now with your duties. Do you get a chance to stay across some of the things that are going on with this team and how they've been able to dominate the league for the last 18 months?
Yeah, no, I've definitely watched a few games. I can't say I'm there every weekend, but I do try and watch a bit. Obviously, I'm a Sydney boy through and through, so I always have a link to the Kings. It's I enjoy their successes from afar, and and obviously Chase, I've got a good relationship, and then having X involved with the Boomers last year. So no, I watch, and it's good to see. I did send a message to a few of them the other day, and I think it does come down to there's a difference, obviously, that first year when we won, and then them last year where it's dealing with certain, you want to, haven't done it for a while and getting that win, but then now the target on your back kind of stuff, everybody's ready for you, and the expectations of yourself are very similar, like you said, to the 03-04 year.
What was that expectation like for you guys going into the second year as the defending championship? It's the old saying that you go from being the hunter, I should say, to the hunted. Do you remember how things changed after that title the year prior?
It's not probably, like you said, there's a lot of similarities. I think one of the big things was our roster changes from that first championship to the second one. And understanding Gorge had just come in when we won that first one. So I think there was an element of, it was just learning Gorge. It was learning how to play in that system, and it all went really well. And so that was a massive thing. But then, like I just said, there was a lot of roster changes going into that second year on top of, technically you're the hunted, as you just said. So I think navigating all of that was a process, and enjoying all of that stuff was awesome, but definitely a different feeling.
A couple of those roster changes for everyone watching. No Shane Heal in year 2, no Kavossi Franklin in year 2, but CJ Bruton arrives and had some massive games across the season. And just tell us a little bit about your early impressions of Ebi Arar when he arrived, Matt.
And just before I do, there's the one and main person that you didn't say then is Chris Williams. He was amazing. And I couldn't let that be not worded, because he was a phenomenal player, and he really helped us and carried us in moments in that first season. Ebby was interesting. He came. I think we practiced in Terrigal. My first memories of him are in Terrigal. At Gosford Stadium. In our preseason, and you just instantly saw this athlete, quick, agile, could shoot it, dunk on people, all of that. And there was probably the thing that was needed was a little of the physicality, looking after the ball, just those things. But what the talent was there straight away, and I think him combining with Gorge was a great thing for us. But also, I think it really helped Ebby become a real pro.
Much like this Sydney Kings team, you finished on top of the table in the second year as well. 26-7 was the regular season record. 14-3 on your home floor, which is remarkable. Was there a point, Matt, in that season where you kind of felt like this new group, and as you say, you were still learning as you go, but it was starting to really come together and head in the right direction?
Yeah. I think we had a really good start, if I remember correctly, and then going into it, I mean, CJ, I think he's a 6-time champion now, whatever, but he hadn't had any yet either, and I think he had a point to prove. He wanted to show what he was, and he was, he's a massive talent. It was just part of, my role in the team the year before was, I contributed a lot, but it wasn't what it was the second year, and so just me navigating that as well, and credit to Gorge for getting all that together. But definitely, it's not like we went into the playoffs not feeling like we were together. That's for sure.
Well, and I think that showed disappeared down a bit of a YouTube rabbit hole the other day preparing for this, watching a lot of the semi-final series. You played the Brisbane Bullets in the semis, margins of 4 and 5 in the 2 games. You won them both, whereas West Sydney, on the other hand, had a pretty comfortable passage through against the Illawarra Hawks on their side of the draw. Do you think that semi, having 2 really good hit-outs against the Bullets in 2 close games, do you think that helped you going into the championship series?
Yeah, well, I think that back then, too, you actually sat out the first round, and that's not always good. And Gorge kind of, doesn't know what to do with himself. He wants to kill you, but he goes cardi to like all of that stuff. So he always I'm saying that in jest a bit, he always navigated those things really well, but it is a weird way to have to play. And so I remember that first game against Brisbane, we were down 21 points, definitely 20 points. Gorge obviously got into us, but Chris Carrywell gave one of the best speeches I was ever a part of at halftime. And I know even now I get like goosebumps. Literally the best speech I've ever heard. And then we go out on court for the first possession, play great defense. They shoot an air ball, bounces off someone's head to I think Michael Hill on the 3-point line. He knocks it down. Now we're down 24, and you felt like you just put all your heart and soul out at it. That just happened. So that was a tough game. I remember that one pretty well. And then so Brisbane were a real good team back then as well, and working our way through that definitely didn't hurt. There's only 2 games, obviously, so I think that got us in a really good rhythm.
So you get to the grand final series, and it's funny when you're watching the YouTube videos, and we've got a lot of footage within NBL Media as well, but a quick Google search of the 03-04 series, Matty, the first picture that comes up is you and Simon Dwight. Simon Dwight's got his arms around you, and it was physical and it looked nasty. It looked as though going into the series, the rivalry between you two was really strong.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you go back to their first game, and there was a few interesting moments, and a rivalry started pretty quickly without, the plan of it. I definitely accidentally probably got too involved in that as well. But as that went on, I think, there was no love lost. It's not trying to take each other's heads off or whatever, but we were very happy to beat them and dominate Sydney as a whole. Also, I always had a funny feeling because I'm from Penrith, so I was more West Sydney than anybody running up and down that court. So it was always, that was a funny part for me.
So the series ebbs and flows. You beat them in game 1 by 20. CJ had 35. Chris Carrywell had 26. 16 made threes for the Sydney Kings. It was just raining. And then they hit back hard in game 2 and game 3. You win game 4. So going into game 5, which is, let's face it, as fans, it's what we all want for a championship series to go to game 5. Do you remember the build-up to that particular game?
Well, what I remember is game 4, because we played really well in game 1. But there's a world where you say we kind of got a bit full of ourselves and didn't bring that same aggression, and just tried to rely on probably some of the fancier things that we hadn't done all season to be what we are. Game 4 is in their place, and if we lose, they win the trophy. And I don't know if they did it to be smartasses or whatever, but they put the trophy in where we had to run out of. So actually turned out like, that's a fact and it happened. But I remember it's such a great thing because we kind of circled right next to it, looked at it, dealt with it, and then went and did our thing. And I think it was a good inspiration to just see what we're playing for. You didn't really need reminding, but that happened, and it was a pretty good extra motivation that they gave us.
And talking of ebbs and flows, game 5 ebbs and flows too. So you're down 14 at quarter time in game 1 of the deciding series, but then you weather the storm, you get things back onto a little bit more of a level pegging. Fast forward though to quarter 4, Sydney have 34 points in the last quarter to roar home and win the title.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I think we played pretty well. From my memory of that, people talk about it, whatever. West Sydney played extremely well that game, and they hit a lot of shots. We were scrapping, we were fighting, and I think that fourth quarter was amazing. Abby Ara's performance was superhuman. I think, we got on such a run. I mean, we went from being down, 14 with a couple of minutes to go or whatever, maybe even more, to winning by nearly that much, or however it ended up. Quite an amazing finish to that game. But I do remember, like, halfway through the fourth, and we're down by quite a bit, and looking over at Brett Wheeler, who wasn't in the first team the year before, and now was at grand final, I think number 6 that he hadn't won, maybe more. And you don't like to overdo it, but that was definitely an inspiration. There was that little bit. I was like, we can't let this guy just be gone. And selfishly, of course, I wanted to win as well or whatever, but like, that was a real part about Wheels. He's a legendary teammate, and that was definitely the outcome. Just, I remember chasing him down and grabbing him, but yeah, that was definitely part of it.
So to go back to back in any sport's really hard, Matty. Do you remember, in some ways, I guess, the pressure valve being released, or just a feeling of relief because you had spent the entire season building up to try and defend the title?
Oh yeah, there's it's a mixture for sure, of relief, excitement, the accomplishment of it all. But I still think it was an enjoyment of what we'd achieved. I don't think it was the pressure was, of course, there and whatever, but the relief is great. But the enjoyment of winning it, and winning it in Sydney, like the year before we'd won it in Perth, so to do it with the home fans, it was just so high emotions that it was an awesome environment.
So how do you look back as we wrap up? How do you reflect on that year? Because, as I say, so much of it is relevant now to what Sydney are doing and trying to do this season. We've had 2 games in the series already. How does that memory live for you in terms of everything that you established and achieved in your career?
Yeah, you got to take all those moments for what they are every time. It's such a fortunate thing. There's 10 teams that start every year and dig in and that, and Sydney, they're scrutinised a little bit more. There's always a bit of, they ask for it sometimes, maybe they don't. That's always been the history of the Kings, and so it is fun. It's what you do, but you don't get these opportunities very often. So you've got to enjoy it. You've got to take it on. You don't leave anything not out there. And I think that for me, it's embracing that moment and enjoying it for what it is the best idea, because you one day you get old fat like me, and what you got. But it's a great memory and something they should enjoy and get after.
Well, I'll speak on behalf of everyone. It's great to see you, Matt. Thanks for making the effort. You're joining us from the other side of the world today to have a chat, and I know you'll be rooting for the Sydney Kings for the back half of this series. So thanks for your time today. We really appreciate it.
No worries. Catch you later.